Hey, and welcome to P&W Repair. Today on the channel, I've actually decided to go ahead and hold on to the mini excavator that I bought to resell. Turns out I kind of like it, so I'm going to keep it around, at least for a while. Before I get real heavy into doing a lot of work with it though, there is quite a few things that in my eyes need to be addressed. So we are doing some preventative maintenance on our brand new, what is it? FF Industrial FF13 mini excavator. So I started by changing the oil that came in that Briggs & Stratton out already. I only have, I think, 1.5 hours on the machine right now. Already changed it out to, what is that? Some 15W50 full synthetic, I think Mobile 1. So we've done that. I did wanted to put a fuel shutoff in. Well, after taking a bunch of panels off and everything, I already found that there is a fuel shutoff down on the carburetor. So that's one less thing I had to do. It did not have a fuel filter anywhere in it, so I added an inline filter there. From this point, still waiting on a few hydraulic fittings and whatnot, but and some electrical components, I suppose. But I want to add an electric fan for under the house, and this will suck hot air and exhaust fumes and all that out and spit it out the driver's side or left side of the house. To do that, this fan came wired as a, what would that be? It came wired to push air. They have a design where black wire is supposed to be your ground wire, blue wire is supposed to be your supply. So reversing polarity will reverse rotation of the motor, which will take it from pushing air to pulling air. Along with that, 8mm nut here, I zip that off, flip the blade over so it's facing the correct direction to be most efficient at actually pulling air. So I'm going to get that all mounted up today. I'm waiting on a relay for the electrical as well as a toggle switch. I do have an inline fuse to run to that relay. Should be that high side of that relay should be about 30 amp circuit, 30 to 40 amps. This fan I think is rated for 20 amps. What else? So then our hydraulic system, there's no hydraulic filter anywhere in the system. So what I'm doing there, I have copper 1/8 inch NPT pressure gauge line kit here. And then I got a Donaldson, really nice Donaldson filter head to run a hydraulic filter. Again, Donaldson part number P551551. My filter head, Donaldson P563288. So that'll go on to that, obviously. I'm waiting on all my hydraulic fittings. They're coming from a different supplier. So I'm going to add a filter head in line. I'm going to add a pressure gauge because this filter head is going to be on the return side of the hydraulic system. So I'll add a filter gauge or a pressure gauge on that as well. This has 2 ports on this filter head, 8th MPT ports. So I'll be adding a pressure gauge to show me when this filter is plugged up. Your pressure is going to increase on the return side as that filter plugs, as well as a temperature sensor for hydraulic fluid temperature. And when I go and plumb all that in, I'm going to change whatever garbage they have in that hydraulic reservoir out to just some standard, probably ISO 46, or we'll see what I have laying around, probably ISO 46. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to get done. obviously go over the whole thing, which I've already done, and grease it real well, but honestly, I think that's about all that needs done. And at that point, we'll be able to start using it on jobs. So hang around, we'll get this thing mounted up today. All right, well, we're working in pretty tight quarters, but over here, this is the left side of the machine, driver side, if you will. We have this side ventilation panel here, and I'm gonna somehow maybe make up some tabs or something. I'm gonna mount that fan in there like that. Now, originally I bought a 12-inch fan, and at least on this particular excavator, there is nowhere you're gonna make a 12-inch fan fit. So we sent that one back, and this is a 7-inch fan. And I'm thinking this is probably about as big as you're gonna get for a ventilation fan on one of these. So it's gonna be in there something like that. And obviously it'll be pulling, so it'll suck fumes and hot air and all that crap from out from under the seat here, and should help keep our hydraulic system as well as our engine cooler. So yeah, figure out some mounts, and I'll get back with you after I figure something out here. Well, I got the fan all mounted up in there. Yeah, about that. So we did not have the option to use one of our supplied fan mounting zip tie dealies because it came pre-broken from China. What a treat. So regular old zip tie made it happen, but sits in there real nice. So one other thing I did off camera is drill a hole for my hydraulic pressure gauge. So right up here between the two joysticks, I drilled, what was this, 1 5/8 hole for our 1.5 pressure gauge. Now on these small ones like this, they typically don't have any kind of hold down. It is a very tight fit the way it is, but all I'm going to do is put a wrap of electrical tape on it when I go to actually plumb it to keep it from rotating or anything. Simple enough, visible, looks clean, that'll work. Might be getting a little ahead of myself here, so I figure I better turn you guys on and show you what I'm doing. So I've removed the floor pan to gain access to the battery here. I had just a, I don't know, 2-foot section of I think this is 2 gauge welding cable laying around, and some 2 gauge 5/16 terminal ends. So down on the positive terminal, where that lug connects to the terminal, it's a bolt-on deal, 5/16 bolt. So we have that bolted on to the same terminal as the main battery cable. Then this side, well, you can see it's there right now. It's going to go under the floor back to where I can gain access under the seat to, if I can find it, where did I put it? To a junction lug. So that's going to do a few things for me. One, make it significantly easier to jumpstart this thing if need be, if the battery dies or what have you. And 2, make it a whole lot easier to add any kind of electrical accessories to this deal. So I'm going to get that routed up under the floor, and we'll find a spot to mount that junction lug and go from there. Well, I got our junction lug installed. Holy shit, is that factory? So what I did is right through that seat hinge, I just took two longer, what are those, M6x1 bolts, ran those through the hinge, and then nutted the back side of that, and then put our junction block. I had to hog the holes out just a little bit, but then that slid over those long bolts, and then put another washer and a nut, holding that up against those nuts on the inside. I don't know how much better of a view you'll get. You can kind of see the other bolts or nuts up in there. And then I had some vacuum caps. I was going to try to get in there and cut them with something, so I didn't have these huge studs hanging out right next to, you know, a hot lug. But I found some vacuum caps that fit it damn near perfect. And I'd rather not be throwing sparks right next to said gas tank, so that'll work just fine. But got our cable all routed, so now we can start tagging accessories into it. I'm going to wire our fan. That's what I'm going to be working on next, so I need to have that in, so we had somewhere to take our battery voltage from for our high amperage lines to the fan. So there you go. We're getting extra sassy with this wiring job. So I got this whole connector set off of, I don't know, I think Temu. It's got like 1 pins, 2 pins, 3 pins, shit all the way up to 4 pin connectors. It is quite a unit. So do this upright and real nice like. On our fan, I am in the process of wiring those in, and then we'll have 2 nice 1 pin connectors, our power side off of our relay, and our ground that will go down, and I'm probably going to tag into the same ground down there on the block. So it's just coming right along. I got down here on our distribution lug, I have our constant power, or big gauge 10 gauge wire or 12 gauge wire to our relay. In the very back that you can't see, there is a white wire that is our switched power to the relay, one leg of that, and then our main cable from the battery into that. And I also managed to mount that relay directly off of one of those studs that was hanging out too, so that was pretty cool. So I'll be tucked in right there. Decided to mount the switch right here, so I'm gonna get back to wiring in those, and I will get back with you. Alrighty, we're all wired in. So I did do the hot side. I did one of those one-way connectors I was showing you. The ground side to that, I got lazy and didn't. And I actually spliced my relay ground and my fan ground into the same eyelet down there. So if the fan ever has to be replaced, I'm gonna have to cut and resplice that, or add another 1 pin connector in line there for that ground. Not a big deal, but relay's tucked up in there all nice. Fan switch mounted up with just enough clearance. I think this spot I may have to file that down a little bit. I haven't checked the clearance with the actual seat pan yet, but I think it might clear it. I did forget to put a fuse in, so I had to go back in and do that between the relay and my supply lug. So we got a 30 amp 30 amp blade fuse there. Yeah, not a whole lot to it, just, you know, tedious bullshit, but went ahead and both my ground wires I ran down there, went ahead and wrapped those in loom so they look nice, attached it to the disconnect ground there. So power on, fan on. And it is blowing air like I want it to. So originally I did consider triggering this fan off of a temp sensor or temperature switch off of engine oil temperature. I was going to do a T-fitting down at the oil drain and T in a temperature switch and run the fan off of that, but I kind of decided against doing that for a number of reasons. The fittings, it was really weird. I know the drain plugs on these, it's a 12 by 1.5. Well, I could find a 12 by 1.5 T that had a 12 1.5 male, a 12 1.5 female, and then it would be, or no, 12 1.5 male, and then it would be, I think the T section was something weird like 8, or was it? No, it was a 12 1.5 T, and then I think all three of them actually were. So the problem I was having was finding a bushing to adapt a 12 1.5 to a 8th MPT to make a temperature switch work in there. Or it wasn't that, it was because it had to go into the T, but I wouldn't have had the depth. So I was trying to find a way to extend it, which I did, and after I priced all these parts out, it would have been a ridiculous amount. So I figured running off of a switch, this is going to be a little better for a number of reasons too. If I'm running in the winter time and I'm having a problem with the glass fogging up, and it's cold, obviously, I want some of that cabin temperature, so I'm not going to be running that fan regardless of engine oil temperature. In the summertime, it's pretty much as soon as the machine's turned on, I'll probably turn that fan on. So different ways of doing it. I don't know how other people do it, but that was the most logical way to do it for me. So that's what we ended up doing. So I'm going to leave this floor pan out because my hydraulic fittings should be arriving any day now. And that top line right there is the return line. I'm plumbing a hydraulic filter in right there, and we're also going to be plumbing not only a pressure gauge to it, but a hydraulic temperature gauge to it. So we'll leave this out for now, but that's where we're at right at the moment. Conveniently, this particular excavator has a drain on the bottom of the hydraulic tank. So I've spun the house around to where I can get a pan under it. We're going to go ahead and drain that so we can start plumbing our filter head and gauge and all that. So there's just a 6mm hex down here that apparently is really tight. Jesus. Make sure I'm not a dummy. Rather not round it off. There it goes. All right. Let's see what we got. Smells like hydraulic oil. Kind of looks a little milky. Unless it's just aeration. Hopefully our pan's big enough. I'm not sure what the capacity is on this, so I guess we'll find out, huh? I think I've got it all figured out how I want this done. This was actually, not my research going into this. I want to be clear on that. This is actually a Facebook group post that I read. I'm just kind of doing what that guy did, or roughly what he did. I'm kind of looking back at his post, and reading how he had his fittings doesn't really line up with how I'm doing this. So I don't know if his machine was a little different. He didn't have pictures or anything, but this is how I'm doing it. Because it's tight quarters regardless, you know. So this is the Donaldson filter head I got. Part number P563288. It's nice because it actually has two ports, 8th MPT ports that go into it. Pretty crucial if you're doing this to understand why the flow through this filter head is important. I suppose if you're a dumbass, you could do it backwards, but basically this is on the return line. So you even have direction of flow arrows on the head of it, being that this is the return side. We would want to route, well, you'll see once it's actually on the truck. And why there is a direction for this is you have a pressure relief here. Basically, if your filter plugged up, that pressure relief would open to let oil, oops, not in frame, that pressure relief would open there to let oil bypass. I don't know if you can see down the center of that, probably not. Yeah, you can, there you go. So with that, yeah, direction is very important. Now, I've kind of mocked it all up already, so I know how I'm doing this. We are going to take some Loctite 545 on all these threads. Make sure they're good and sealed up. So this is what we've ended up with. I did originally have that straight to the filter head until I tried to put it in there. It sits right down on the belly pan if you had that straight into the tank. So I've tilted it to where it's up. Should fit. Everything should clear like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get it all mounted in there, and I'll get back with you. So it's all mounted in there now. You can see I have clearance there above the belly pan. I don't know whether or not that would be enough to actually spin that filter off with the whole setup in there. Looks like it probably will, but even if it's not, taking that one fitting off is no big deal. So that's all plumbed and done. Only other thing I got to do is I got to pull the hose loose up at the spool, so I can rotate this one to get it to, well, maybe I won't have to, but I'm going to have to get it to line up in there. I might not have to rotate that. No, I'm seeing that. Okay, well, we'll try to put it on there. Well, hot spit. I didn't even have to, excuse me, pull that line loose to rotate it. It just bent right over on it and plumbed right in just right. So we officially have a filter plumbed in line. Now, next thing I'm doing, I have my two 1/8 inch MPT ports here. I'm going to take one of these, probably the harder one to get to, and I'm going to plumb in my pressure gauge here. I think it's just open underneath here. Oh yeah. So I'll get some mechanics wire and I'll pull the line up through there and we'll get that plumbed. One step closer to having everything done. I have pressure and voltage gauge combo gauge from the Jungle site that is taken forever and a day. Pretty sure China has to manufacture it first. So when that actually shows up, I'll plumb the temperature probe into this 1/8 inch MPT port. That way we can monitor hydraulic temperature, hydraulic pressure, and battery voltage. And being that we already have our functioning engine fan, we can kind of regulate our hydraulic temperatures. So cool. We'll get going on plumbing that. It's just so tight quarters in here that it's kind of hard to film while I'm actively doing it, so I kind of just gotta give you the highlights after I've done it. So let me work on that. Well, I'm gonna let you in on another secret. It's amazing how few people actually think of basic shit like this. But so you get your roll of copper line to set up a pressure gauge like this. Comes in a spool, right? Well, what kind of a pain in the ass is it to try to straighten that out? So the easy way to go about this, get yourself a block of wood. This is 1/8 inch line. I drill it a 64th bigger at 9/64. Put a 9/64 hole in this block of wood. Now what I'll do is I'll just straighten out a small little section here on the end. And I will feed it through my hole here. And this will do a really good job of actually straightening that out. A lot more efficient than trying to do it by hand anyway. All that's left is fill up the hydraulic system. And we'll fire it up, check for leaks. I'm leak free, and pressure gauge works. So on the return side I have 10 psi currently. That'll work. Alrighty, well, as you can see, we got our gauge line all plumbed. I don't know if you might be able to, no, can't really see where it goes up through there to the pilots, but goes up to our gauge here. When I initially fired it up, and like I did state before, I did fill this machine with ISO 46, and when I fired it up, It's about 40 degrees out right now. I had 10 psi. Well, after it sat here and ran for 10 minutes, dropped down to about 5 psi. So not a whole lot of pressure on the return side. That's a perfect indication of when that filters need to be changed. Now I know, normal operating pressures on the return. If it starts to climb on that, that means that filter's plugged up, and we're eventually going to start bypassing if we don't change it. So simple enough, effective. Like I said, I will link the article I read on a Facebook group about plumbing this filter in. Turned out great. So soon as my temperature / voltage gauge arrives from China, which who knows when the hell that's going to be, I'll go ahead and pull that 8th MPT port, and I'll use that for the temp sensor. And yeah, that'll really do it. I mean, for my plans on what needed to be done to this machine. So appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.